Last week, Niger made history by becoming the first African government to suspend military cooperation with the world superpower, the United States. That was something that had never been done before. But as we stated in our previous video, the military juntas of the Sahel have unanswered in a new age for African geopolitics. The suspension of military cooperation with the United States means that U.S. troops, personnel, and its base in Agadez, Niger, are no longer welcome. But it seems the United States is not ready to leave Niger because recent news has revealed that since the news was released, American officials have been having closed-door meetings with the military government of Niger to determine if they can still retain some kind of security presence in the country. In simple terms, the United States is now begging Niger to change its mind and allow them to remain in the country. According to a U.S. official, both sides are exploring ways and conditions under which the American military presence could remain in Niger, and it's very likely that even if they remain, their presence would be reduced. So the question is, will the military government of Niger heed the pleas of the United States and allow the U.S. troops and its base to remain in Niger, or will it give an official statement telling them to leave? Right now, no one knows until their closed-door meeting ends and an official statement is released. But the point is, isn't it interesting that the tables have turned? Just before Niger suspended military cooperation with the United States, U.S. officials walked into Niger with an air of superiority and demanded that if any cooperation is going to continue between the two countries, then Niger will have to reconsider its relations with Russia. But the junta refused to give in, instead defending Niger's right as a sovereign country to partner with any country, including Russia and Iraq, whenever it wanted. And now that Niger has suspended its military cooperation with the U.S. has now gotten the message that they no longer have any influence. If you watch the video we made on Niger suspending military cooperation, you will see where we analyze how the military cooperation between Niger and the United States seems to benefit the United States more than Niger. Under the agreement signed between both countries, which the military junta believed was forced on Niger, the United States was under no obligation to respond to calls for help by Niger against terrorists. This means that if Niger asks the U.S. for help to fight against terrorists, the U.S. can choose not to offer any help because that is what was in the agreement. So what benefits does the United States military in Niger bring to the country? Absolutely nothing, in our opinion. Of course, whenever U.S. officials speak on the issues, they will never fail to say that the removal of U.S. troops from Niger will lead to an increase in insecurity in Niger. But the question these officials need to answer is, since they have been in Niger since 2012, has the insecurity been reduced? How many terrorists have they killed? As we said in our previous video, the United States military is not in Niger to help them fight terrorists. Instead, they are there to make sure the terrorists don't spill past the Sahel into the West, show its military might, be ready in case West Africa decides to do something against the West, and gather information about West African countries. According to the dictionary, cooperation between two countries is supposed to benefit both countries, right? Or else it cannot be rightly called agreement or cooperation. So this kind of relationship between Niger and the United States, where only the United States benefits, cannot rightly be called a mutual cooperation, but one that is parasitic, leeching on the strategic location of Niger in the Sahel region. The U.S. base in Niger is very important, and they understand how beneficial that base is. This is why they will do anything, even beg, so that that base and the U.S. troops remain in Niger. Now, according to one U.S. official, despite the public statement by the Niger military government to suspend military cooperation with the United States, the Niger government has not offered the private, technical communications that would force the U.S. presence out of the country. This means that the U.S. still harbors some kind of hope that it's possible that they might still remain in the country. However, according to Andrew Lebovich, a research fellow with the Klingendahl Institute who focuses on Niger, the U.S. is just deciding itself. He said that despite the massive American economic and security investments in the country over the years, Nigerian officials now appear to show little interest in maintaining the American presence. He also added that for a very long time, the U.S. felt it could count on Niger because it felt that it was different from France. But the truth is, Niger doesn't feel that way. Another U.S. official, J. Peter Pham, a former U.S. Special Envoy for the Sahel region, noted that the regional dynamics in the Sahel have changed and it is no longer business as usual. He added that a foreign country can no longer approach African governments, even one of the poorest, least developed countries like Niger, with lectures about democracy without first weighing our strategic interests and the immediate concerns of the regime. These two officials are very correct in their assessment of the situation. As Peter Pham says, it is no longer business as usual. For a long time, when the West wanted to sign cooperation with African countries, the West always came from a place of superiority, demanding this and that and outlining how the cooperation would go without giving any consideration to the demands of the African countries. The African leaders, on their part, who are so weak and greedy, would accept as long as they were offered security and financial commitments. But these new military leaders are different. A congressman in the United States once called them sophisticated, meaning that some officials in the U.S. understand that they are no longer dealing with the old kind of African leaders. The truth is, things have changed, and even if somehow the military government of Niger and the United States reach an agreement that would allow U.S. troops to remain in the country, that old agreement that benefited only the United States would definitely be dissolved, and a new one will be signed. The new agreement would probably lead to a reduction in the number of U.S. troops, and the Niger government would demand that the U.S. activities in Niger would have to be made transparent. This was one of the issues the Niger spokesman spoke about when he read the statement about the suspension of military cooperation in Niger. According to him, since the United States has been in Niger, Niger was not made aware of the number of U.S. civilian and military personnel on its soil, or the amount of equipment deployed, or information gathered about the terrorist. Everything the U.S. has done in Niger has been done in secret, and it's the same thing they do in all their bases. Most of the time, the host government is not made aware of their activities, meaning there is no transparency. So even if the U.S. troops are to remain in Niger, the Niger government would most likely demand transparency. In addition to all these, Niger would also make it clear to the United States that it would no longer interfere in its internal politics or try to dictate which country it should partner with. In fact, in our opinion, this would most likely be the #1 demand from the Niger government. Sovereignty is what the new Africa is pursuing. So if the U.S. military wants to remain in Niger, it should be ready for the fact that Niger will partner with Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and its two greatest rivals, China and Russia. In fact, to show that Niger doesn't care one bit what the U.S. thinks about whom it partners with, a few days after announcing the suspension of military cooperation with Niger, the military junta put a call through to Russian President Vladimir Putin to express solidarity with Moscow following terrorist attacks at Crocus City Hall, which killed 139 people. Both leaders also used the opportunity to discuss not just military cooperation to combat terrorism in the Sahel, but also mutually beneficial cooperation in other areas. So, this means that Niger has no intention of letting go of its relationship with Russia or any non-Western countries. What all this means is that if the U.S. military wants to remain in Niger, then it has to be ready to accept that the Russian military will also be in Niger. But can the U.S. accept this? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.